So a very good morning to all of you. I'm Professor Shireen Moti, Assistant Professor of Law and Director of the Office of Alumni Relations at OP Jindal Global University. I'm also the chairperson for the Committee for Academic Support on Higher Education and Learning, which aims at advising and guiding JGLS students and alumni to pursue higher education in law and related disciplines. With this, I welcome you all to Cashel's 7th interactive webinar as a part of our higher education series. Today, we have with us a distinguished JGLS alumna, Ms. Pavitra Jaydev, with us to speak about her experiences of applying to and pursuing the LLM program from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. Ms. Pavitra Jaydev is a dual international lawyer who is qualified to practice as a solicitor in the High Court of Australia, Supreme Court of New South Wales, Australia, and as a solicitor barrister in the High Court of Auckland, New Zealand. She has received a number of merit-based academic scholarships that speaks volumes of her academic merit and research rigor. So she was awarded the OP Jindal Global University Savitri Jindal Studentship 2015-18, UNSW Future of Change Scholarship 2018-19, UNSW Faculty of Law Postgraduate Academic Excellence Scholarship 2018-19, OP Jindal Global University Distinguished Alumni Award 2019-2020 for exceptional professional service and commitment towards improving the society. Pavitra, and she also was given Laureate Australia Business Merit Scholarship 2020 to 2022, and there might be many more that would be added to this list as years pass by. Pavitra is regularly featured on various legal forums and chat shows because of the amazing academic and professional credentials and the journey that she has had so far, significant achievements and remarkable mentoring capabilities. She flaunts these degrees from top universities in the world. She has completed her BBA LLB honors from the Global Law School, her LLM in dispute resolution from the University of New South Wales. And if this was not enough, she's about to finish her MBA and Masters of Global Project Management from Torrance University. Welcome, Pavitra. I would like to invite you for your opening remarks.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm really glad that I'm here. As always, it's a pleasure to catch up with you and also to be a part of JGU's initiatives. So before we had started the session, like you had said, this is my way, like you had.
Pavitra, I think you muted yourself accidentally. Can you unmute yourself?
No. Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, okay. So like I said, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm glad to be a part of this initiative. As always, it's a pleasure to be with all of you. And before we had started this session, you had asked me that why I do this or why I agree to be a part of these webinars. It's because, like you had rightly pointed out, it's my way of giving back to my alma mater. It's my way of giving back to a lot of students who are either in my place at this point in time or who find themselves at a later stage in their life, where I was at one point in time, not knowing answers to many questions. So I'm just doing my bit in answering those questions and making their journey a little bit easier as compared to what was mine. So why should everybody go through the same struggle or whatever it is that another person had to go through? So if someone can have it easy, then why not? I think you're on mute now, Shireen. I think you're on mute now. I am not sure if you're able to hear me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So I must have muted it to block all the noise when you were speaking.
Automatically
Is it okay now? Are you audible? Am I audible now?
Yeah, now you are. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to just say that, you have had a remarkable journey and we are sort of delighted to have you with us today so that you can share the various challenges that you have faced so far and also communicate how do you really break those barriers to reach where you are to all the students who are trying to, even aspiring to have a career like yours. So before we get into the Q&A, what I would like to do is I would like to acknowledge the presence of my team at Cashel in today's webinar and also all the attendees for today's webinar. webinar. Ms. Simran Binder is the discussant for our webinar today. She's a lecturer at Jindal Global Law School, Assistant Dean of the Office of Research Dean at JGLS, member casual, and also a JGLS alumna. Simran will be taking questions towards the last 15 minutes of this webinar. So I request the attendees to use the Q&A feature on Zoom, and also we are streaming live on YouTube. You can post your questions there as well, which will be taken up during the last 15 minutes of this webinar, and Simran will be handling that section of today's webinar. So Pavitra, my first question to you is, and this will take you back to the memory lane, wherein you have to share with us the experience of studying law at OP Jindal Global University.
Yeah, so my journey, I'm sure a majority of, like even Simran will agree with me, our batch was like a very big batch, first batch with 360 students. And my section was the only section which was the first BBA LLB section. I still remember when I came to Jindal with my parents and we first met Anand Prakash Mishra sir. And I was confused between choosing BA LLB and BBA LLB, and I think he helped me make that choice, that you'd be better suited in a BBA LLB course instead of a BA LLB course, because I had commerce background. So I said, fair enough, I probably would be better suited there because I've not had any experience with humanities. I was not a science student. So I said, okay. I joined BBA LLB, and I still remember my first day in college, my first day in hostel. My parents left me at the gates and then they went away. And then, but it didn't feel as if I've come to a very strange place and I can't find myself here or I've lost myself. Like I always felt at home. Like Jindal for me is home. And even today, when I speak to you or speak to my friends or speak to people who are now working in Jindal in the capacity of professors and lecturers, some of my batchmates who are working there, they're still very warm and very welcoming. And they're like, you come anytime, you come visit the campus, including Mishra sir. He's like, come to campus, spend some time here. But that being said, that's the hospitality or that's the warmth that comes from that community. I mean, anybody who has been to Jindal or who studied there, after a point in time, you would feel it that yes, you're a part of a very warm and welcoming community. That's that. As far as my educational journey is concerned, during the first 2 years, honestly speaking, and I won't say that this was Jindal, but me as a person, I felt very lost, and I felt as if, okay, I still need to figure out what is it that I want to do in my life, what is it that I want to do. I wanted to be a lawyer, no doubt, but what sort of a lawyer? So I remember that my very first professor was Professor Surbhi, and she used to teach us, I think, legal methods, or there was another, I think she used to teach us torts. So Professor Mansi, Professor Surbhi, and then Professor Arju Majumdar, and then Professor, they were like bunch of amazing professors who helped me get that perspective as to what is it that I want to do in law. Like there are so many things that you can do. Some people want to do policy, some people want to be hardcore practitioners, some people want to join academia, some people want to go abroad and practice. But all these people and their experiences, whatever they brought to the class, that sort of structured my idea as to what is it that I want to do in life. So I was good at researching, I was good at drafting. This was something that I was exposed to when I was in my third year. So the first 2 years, I was laying low, just like majority students. I was not one of those top scorers in my batch. I was not the cream of my class. But in the third year, something changed, and I sort of had this at the back of my mind that okay, maybe corporate law is something that I can do, or this is the area that I'd like to practice in. And in that sense, I started picking up those internships. I interned with some of the best law firms in India, and having gained that experience, at first I was like, okay, maybe this is what I want to do. But then I realized that, I mean, no offense, but I just feel that some certain areas of law, they operate in a vacuum where I can't feel the impact they're actually making on a human being or on society in general. I mean, of course, companies, you have to help them function, whatever you do with that. But I just feel that certain laws, they act in vacuum. So I thought that I can't work like that. I can't do something that doesn't affect someone's life, or that doesn't create a direct impact on the society in some way. So I thought, okay, corporate law is not my cup of tea. Even though I got a PPO from JSA Bangalore, I was like, okay, I'm not going to take this up because I can't go ahead with this. In my fourth year, luckily, one of my friends introduced me to dispute resolution because she had gone to Singwa for a semester exchange. So in Jindal, we have this thing about semester exchanges, right? That all the best students, they get to go for semester exchanges. You can go to one of the best law schools in the world, spend a semester there, come back with all your experience, and then share it amongst your peers. I was also a part of that program and I got selected into the semester exchange program, but because of certain other issues, I couldn't go through that in my fourth year. But one of my friends, she went to Singwa and she studied from one of the best professors there. And she came back with that whole experience and she shared that with me that, why don't you think about dispute resolution? Why don't you, talk about, like, think about mediation and negotiation, think about this area of law. And since you wanted to create an impact on the society as well as people, look at this side. I was like, okay, fair enough. So then in my fourth year, I still remember, I think I picked up 8 electives, all of them related to dispute resolution in one way or the other. And the best thing was that Jindal had that at that point in time to offer that. I mean, I'm sure like law schools, they float all types of electives, but being able to float that many electives in one specific area. And I'm not just saying this is about dispute resolution. The same is with corp law, the same is with human rights, the same with intellectual property rights. In all these areas, you'd have a plethora of electives. And even if you go overboard with your electives, no hassle. Like you'd still be able to study all those subjects, gain extra credits, and use it somewhere else. So in that way, I feel like Jindal has a lot to offer in terms of their professors, lot to offer in terms of the classes, lot to offer in terms of what sort of opportunities you can get later in life. But that being said, that was my fourth year. I wrapped up with my fourth year, wrapped up with my fifth year. And by the time I was in my fifth year, I made this decision. I spoke to Professor Sean Starr. Like he is the person who gave me this idea that since I was keen on practicing abroad, he said, why don't you look at Australia? Why? Because we have recently tied up something with the legal boards there. You would be one of the first people who'd be, becoming a part of this journey. And maybe you can go and explore, how you would be able to qualify there and everything else. And if it works for you, since anyways you plan on practicing abroad, just try it. So I said, okay, fair enough. I made my applications and he was the one who guided me through that process. So he told me, see, University of Melbourne is there, UNSW is there, these are your options. Go ahead, apply. And then if you need any help with your letters or anything else, let me know. So I was like, okay. In my fifth year, I made my arrangements to do all of this. And that's how I landed in Australia. But like I said, main contribution of Jindal was in terms of what it taught me, in terms of the professors who taught certain subjects brilliantly that has stayed with me ever since. The amount of opportunities that this place has given me is, it's brilliant. And in terms of the exposure that it has given me, again, hands down, I don't think any other, sorry if people who are from NLUs and all those places who are listening to me, sorry, but I feel Jindal hands down has been the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So my loyalties lie with my university.
As they should. That's
Yeah.
brilliant, Pavitra. I'm so glad that you were able to share your experience in such a concise and articulate manner for somebody to know that your journey has been one of constant exploration, taking risks, backing those risks with the hard work and determination that you have put in for so many years, and also hoping that things will work out. I mean, all of those things are remarkable. It speaks of your courage, it speaks of your talent, and it also speaks of your hard work. It's one thing to have opportunities in front of you, and it's the other thing to make use of those opportunities. So you are
Absolutely.
the classic example where, of course, electives are being offered, but how do you use that in order to make a very significant career decision? I mean, if your friend told you that maybe dispute resolution is something that you could be interested in, you did
Yeah.
not take it on face value. You explored the subjects, you studied, you went in deep, and then you made the decision that this is what is something that is interesting for me. And then to take that plunge of going to Australia, doing your LLM, qualifying, first person from Jindal to do this, and I mean, remarkably well, and then to then have the drive to pursue an MBA, it's a lot of work. And I think only a person who is focused, clear, and has the will and determination to do something different can do this. And that is what you are an example of. So with that, now going to the second question, and there's always a trigger point for us to do degrees, right? It is a thing in process. For example, I knew in law school that I will pursue an LLM. I didn't not know when and in what area, but I knew that this is something that I'll end up doing in life, because this had become one of the things that I had sort of listed in my wish list of doing things professionally. So, but my trigger came when I said that, okay, international human rights law, public international law is something that I'm deeply interested in, and I would like to engage in academic and research rigor, and also explore a little bit of arbitration. And therefore, I sort of applied to Queen Mary, got Chevening Scholarship, and went on to do the LLM. But my trigger really was, it was years in the making, but my trigger was that now is the right time, now or never. So how did you decide to do an LLM, and what made you think about Australia? Because the most popular choices when it comes to LLM even today is UK or US, or people are also looking at Canada, but Australia still remains a relatively lesser choice, if I may put it that way. Of course, Indian students have been going to Australia for many years to do their laws, and also Australia has some of the most remarkable universities in the world. The case in point being UNSW. But what made you decide that I want to do an LLM and I want to do it right now, and second, why Australia?
Sure. So the thing is, like I said, in my 5th year, I was exploring. I always had this at the back of my head that so okay, let me put it this way. So when I was in my 4th year, I went for one of these internships. I don't want to name the law firm, but I went for this internship in my 4th year, and I was pulling off really long hours. I'm sure many of my colleagues would agree with this, people who are watching this. And if you have had corporate internships, even you would agree with me that these people, they pull off really long hours till almost 4 or 5 in the morning, which is for some people, I do understand that is their way of functioning, and that is their way of that is their commitment, which is really, I highly appreciate that. But that for me, I'm someone who likes to have a work-life balance. Like, I work is a part and parcel of life. I can't kill myself to work, right? Like, I want to do my bit for the society. I want to help people, and I want to do everything that is there that I can do in my capacity as a lawyer. But I don't want to kill myself in doing that. I want to be happy doing my job. So the point was, in my 4th year, this internship sort of made me realize that corporate law was not meant for me. And that is when I was looking at practicing in the area of dispute resolution. At that time, my research, so anyways, I was doing my internships. I reached to my 5th year. And then when I was in my 5th year, I was looking at universities that offer specializations in dispute resolution. As everybody knows, NUS Singapore is a hub for arbitration. It was on my list as well, and I wanted to go to NUS. I applied and I got through. But the idea was, I applied to Queen Mary as well. I got through their program as well. But then with NUS, they have this special program where NUS and MIDS Geneva, which is another brilliant school for international arbitration, they have a collaboration, and you can do a joint degree program with them. My idea was to get enrolled in that joint degree program, and but the criteria for that was that you have to get a admission seat in both of these universities. So I got through NUS, but I couldn't get through Geneva MIDS. So because of that, I was like, okay, what do I do now? At that point in time, like I said, I met with Professor Shonstar, and he was like, Australia is also an emerging hub in the space of dispute resolution. Why not explore this? And he also said that you anyways wanted to gain some foreign experience as well. So because we have this tie-up with their professional boards, their legal professional boards there, and they recognize our degree, you could qualify there, and maybe you can figure out what you want to do. It was very new for him also to give me a clear head start that this is how you'll go about it. And at the same time, it would have been very I would have asked for too much if I would have pushed him into giving me too many details, because he was still working on it. So then what I did was, okay, I took it in my stride, and I was like, all right, I'll apply to UNSW and University of Melbourne, and I'll see through which one I get through. So my mother at that time, I remember, she was like, "Why do you want to apply to two universities in the same country? You apply for one university in different places." So I was like, "Okay, fine." America was definitely not on the list because American universities, they're very expensive, and without scholarship, it is difficult to pull off such an expenditure. UK, that being said, was still okay. I never looked at Europe. I never looked into Canada. I looked into Singapore, and then UNSW was another option. Now, with UNSW, when I applied for their program, in Queen Mary University, I got a scholarship. And in UNSW, again, when I applied to their program, first I got the Future of Change scholarship from them. So I was like, okay, I got one scholarship. Now I am still deciding here. I haven't like decided that, okay, I'll accept this offer request or I'll accept that offer request. I was like, okay. Then the second scholarship came through the Postgraduate Academic Excellence Scholarship. That's when I made my call and I was like, okay, now this is it. I'm going to go to UNSW. Why? Because now I have two scholarships that can help me get through my entire program. And this is what I'm going to do. So in my fifth year, based on my this desire of wanting to pursue a career in arbitration and dispute resolution, I had three options: London, Singapore, and Australia, of which London and Australia gave me scholarships. But I chose Australia because it gave me two scholarships. UNSW gave me two scholarships, and I thought with this I can pull off the expense of pursuing an LLM abroad. That is the monetary bit of it. Now, if you look at the education bit of it, the idea was that I looked up the professors who are going to be teaching me that course and what sort of subject outline they have. When I went through that, I liked the lineup of the professors and I looked into their qualifications and I saw that, okay, this is good. Like, may not be Gary Bond of arbitration who's teaching in Singapore, but definitely I have like a good bunch of professors here who teach me these subjects. And I think I'd have like a lot of takeaway from this. That's when I decided, all right, UNSW it is. I'm going to go and pursue my LLM. And that's how I landed here and I have stayed here ever since. So that's my bit about my journey.
That's amazing. You know what I find very interesting about your journey is, and which a lot of students should take away from your experience of applying for LLM programs, is that you looked at all options. You went at it with an open mind. It is not like I'm going to go to this university and I'm going to apply only to this program, and this is how I should get a scholarship. Because of course, people are talented, there's a lot of hard work, you do your application, but a lot of it is subjective at the end of it, especially scholarships themselves. Of course, I mean, it's a competitive process. By subjective, I mean that you may get in, you may not get in. So many times what happens is that a person applies for 10 different universities and 5 different scholarships, and the one that they thought that they won't get, they'll end up getting that, and the one they thought is a sure shot winner, that this is where I am going to go, यहाँ तो मेरा पक्का हो जाएगा, that thought in our heads, and you end up not getting in there. So it's good to divide your risk by applying to various universities, all the scholarships that are available, and then take a decision as and when the offers start coming in, rather than thinking in the beginning itself and restricting your choices and not being open-minded. See, a big part of your journey, Pavitra, has been that you have been open to change, you have been open to exploring, because this is an uncharted territory from somebody who has been from Jindal, but you were willing to take that risk and backed it up with so much of commitment, hard work, and clarity of thought, which comes across in your articulation of your experience as well. So the next question, Pavitra, is, of course, no journey is without its challenges, but once we sort of reach the summit, we forget what all we have suffered. But at that time, it seems like the biggest challenge on earth, and it seems that, I won't be able to cross this hurdle, and how do I get past this? So are there any key challenges that you faced while preparing the application materials for UNSW and the various other top universities that you've spoken about? And how did you navigate through those challenges? What are some of the do's and don'ts do you think the prospective students should be careful about? I will give you a head start, and I would say that research a little more about your university and course, and only then start working on the application materials. Over to you, Pavitra, now.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. Research is the mantra. You have to go by it at all times. An example of that would be that when I was in my 5th year and I was looking into these universities that offer specialized courses in this area of dispute resolution, I drew up an entire, like I had like this Word document with me, and with my mom, I sat and I put up like a table on it. And I was looking into Times higher education rankings, and I was looking at QS World rankings. And what I did was that I took the top, I think, top 20 universities. I took the top 20 universities and I looked into like which university is at what rank and in which place. So I categorically removed all the universities in America. I removed all the universities in Europe and everywhere else. And in within the top 20, whatever universities were left, those universities and where they were located and whether they were offering a course in dispute resolution, I decided, okay, these universities are the ones that I'm going to apply to. Now, even out of those, I decided that, okay, I'm going to make my top 5 and I'm going to apply only to the top 5 universities of that list. And in keeping with that, I applied. Now, while applying, like I said, again, I looked into the lecturers, I looked into the course material, I looked into the course outline and everything else, and based on that, I made my decision. Having said that, the very first obstacle that I faced was with the scholarship process for UNSW. So, for the Faculty of Law, the Postgraduate Academic Excellence Scholarship, they relied on my resume, my grades, and a small scholarship statement, on which, of course, I wrote about my motivation for practicing in this area. I wrote about my past experience, my internships, and what sort of difference what sort of difference UNSW would bring in my life, having achieved this degree from their university. So the whole scholarship statement was based on that. So one scholarship, obviously, I got based on the basis of that statement. But the second one, the future of change, their criteria was to prepare a video and to present as to how I could be the future of change, what sort of change I plan on bringing using my area of expertise or law of knowledge. So I was like, okay. So me and my mother and my father, we sat together and we started brainstorming so many ideas that, okay, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. And then we put together all those ideas and we made like a feature film for 3 minutes. And that was the feature film that like sort of picked me up for that scholarship. But the reason why it was an obstacle was because I was not into creating videos or anything like that. But the reason why I could get through that was because many of my assessments in Jindal were into these type of things, like, how do you make a presentation using certain extra skills, like for those extra grades. What me and my group mates would do is that, okay, let's make a video or let's make a feature film, and then get appreciation from a professor saying that, oh, unlike a general presentation, you've made a video, very good, okay, 10 marks extra. So these were small things that helped me later on. Even though I have no video editing skills, I'm not a journalism student, I'm not a filmmaking student, but okay, this took me somewhere. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, when I landed here bag and baggage, I landed a month before my school started because I had to intern with Mitri Lawyers. That's again a law firm with which we have a tie-up, like Jindal has a tie-up with that law firm. So I used that tie-up and I came here. I was interning with Mitri, and after that my college was going to start. I started off with my college now studying, but as far as studying in UNSW was concerned, that was not tricky, to say the least. Like, it was not tricky one bit. Why? Because their standard of education and the standard of education that is offered in Jindal is the same. So while other students were struggling with keeping up with their studies and keeping up with what the professor is saying and making notes and everything, I was easy. Like, I was happy go lucky that, oh, I understand. You're going to teach and then you will leave and you'll expect us to make notes, and then you expect us to be ready with our readings, and you'll expect us to come back and participate in your discussions. But there were a lot of other students who were confused and didn't understand how this works. So, but the thing was that, because that is how professors teach in Jindal, because they have sort of had that sort of an experience, I was already used to it. Now, my problem was that while I was studying in UNSW, I had to finish qualifying as a lawyer here at the same time because of certain visa related issues. So I'm sure Simran would agree with me that, the visa is like a very big thing in Australia. Everybody has issues with their visas. So my problem here was that my visa was running out and I had to like finish off with becoming a lawyer here within that time so I can move on to my next commitment. That was the trickiest bit, that managing my full-time course load at UNSW while simultaneously studying to qualify here. And strangely enough, that qualification, that qualifying, wanting to qualify as a solicitor here, that became more difficult than my UNSW degree itself. So, in the sense that when I submitted my papers to the legal board in NSW, and when they gave me my subjects, they asked me to study three subjects, that was property, constitution, and equity. Those subjects turned out to be more difficult than my LLM degree in itself. So that was a very sort of a difficult phase where, I had to like, I used to go for my morning classes, and then I used to come back and go to the law firm where I was paralegaling, and then after that I'd go for my evening classes so that I could finish off with my qualifying as a lawyer here. And then once I finished with that phase, I cleared those papers and everything else. I remember I was still working, and then the next phase was doing the graduate diploma of legal practice. So what happens here is that, first of, especially for students who are coming from overseas, if you've done your bachelor's in your home country, you come here, you submit your papers to the legal board. They make an assessment on those papers, and they'll tell you how many papers you're supposed to study so you can qualify by ensuring that your degree is equivalent to their degree. So I was like, okay, sorry. So that is the process by which everybody is supposed to qualify. So I submitted my papers. They asked me to do three subjects. I did those three subjects. And now, after this, just like all other Australian students, domestic students, you're supposed to study a graduate diploma of legal practice, which is, I think, 8 subjects. So I started doing that. But the thing is that majority domestic students, as in those who have done a bachelor's or a JD course in Australia, they'd already be well versed with a lot of subjects, as in, let's say, family law, criminal law, property law. They're already well versed with these basics. Whereas in my case, I was not well versed with these subjects. I was only well versed with the three subjects that they had given me. So for me, this graduate diploma became a struggle. I was like, okay, so now I need to figure out other areas of law as well. So how do I do this? So I remember I went to my first class for my GDLP, and this is another important tip, that networking is very important. Building connections is very important. Knowing who's who is very important. Irrespective of where you are, reach out to the other person, say hello, hi, get to know what they are up to in their lives, and just make a conversation and see where that takes you. So because that, I feel like a conversation can open you to so many possibilities. And many times I feel the place where we come from, we are very reserved. We are like, oh, how do we talk to this person? How do we reach out? But I'd say reach out by all means, at least say hello. So I reached out to some of my friends, now they are my friends, some of my friends in the GDLP. And I said, okay, so all of you have studied this course. Could you guide me through this and everything? I said, they're very helpful. So they gave me all these tips and tricks about how I could navigate this course. I navigated that course. I finished off with that course. Finally, I qualified here. And then another part of my life started after that. But in terms of struggles, every new thing that comes into your life, like anything that happens in your life, I would say, instead of looking at it as an obstacle, think of it as an opportunity for you to explore and for you to discover new things. Like that's what I did in my journey. Like every time a struggle came by or a hurdle came by, I took it in my stride and I thought, okay, maybe this has come to me because this wants to teach me something. Maybe I'm still not done with exploring or discovering this part of my life. So maybe this has come to me because I need to take something away from this. So I'd say with that attitude, it'll take you places.
That's amazing, Pavitra. You have a very positive attitude towards all the sort of challenges that you have had to reach where you are. And what is interesting is that your journey, I mean, is always, two things were going on parallelly. Firstly, your degree, and the second one was getting those professional sort of licenses to practice in Australia. And by what you've said, I think the subjects were entirely different. Still, you were able to manage and navigate because you had that drive that this is something that I would like to do. And that is very important. So motivation is very important to achieve anything in life. And then everything becomes like a like a lot easier because you keep going back to your motivation. Also, going into a different country, having other cultural experiences and entirely different culture is not easy. Being away from family and all of those things are an added pressure, and you were able to deal with that because you had a solid sense of purpose, and that really is very important. So what were some of the cultural experiences, Pavitra, that you have had in Australia, and what made you, I mean, you have been in Australia for such a long time now. There has to be something apart from the law that is keeping you there. So, I mean, that's a major part of it. But of course, what are the cultural experiences? How is life in Australia as an Indian student, and then as an Indian qualified lawyer, and then becoming dual qualified henceforth?
So yeah, in terms of definitely, this place has the reason I've stayed here for 3.5 years now. So in the past 3.5 years, I haven't gone back home. Like I haven't been home as yet. I'm hoping that this year I'll get to go home. But honestly, I'm not to be blamed for this. COVID is to be blamed for this. I'm not responsible one bit for staying away from my home country. But that being said, definitely, more than law, the reason why I like this country is because there was one point in time I remember I was reading up in news, and even my father was skeptical about sending me to Australia was because of discrimination. In terms of racial discrimination, everybody knows about this. Everybody has talked about this, but I feel that that is something in the past now. As far as now, if you'd see, there is a lot of there are a lot of there is a lot of diversity here. There is a lot of inclusivity, and lots of people who are from different cultures who've come here and they've built their families and they've made a community here. So unlike in 2008 2007 where there were only majority white Australians, now that's not the case. You'd see a lot of familiar faces here. As far as Indian culture and Indian community is concerned, there's a massive Indian community here. UNSW has a very big, what do you say, another Indian community support system. I'm not sure about how other universities have that, but UNSW definitely has that. So if you're someone who belongs to a certain community, they'd hold all these fests for you to come and like have a chit chat and make friends and everything else. Otherwise, I'm a part of this brilliant association here. I've recently become, in fact, a part of this association. It's called the Asian Australian Lawyers Association, where Asian lawyers and Australian lawyers, they'd spearhead the legal industry in the sense that they would talk about the challenges that Asian Australian lawyers face, and they'd also talk about how to be a more inclusive legal industry and how to be a more diversified legal industry. So in that sense, I would say what Australia has to offer, Australia has a good weather. That's one thing. As I said, Australia is a multicultural country. There's blending in of lot of cultures here. It's inclusive. Their workplace rights are brilliant. There are so many places that you can go to and explore. So many things that I haven't explored as yet that I'd like to explore. Like I said, so many opportunities like this association that I spoke about. And by virtue of my MBA and Masters of Global Project Management, like by virtue of that, I got introduced to some brilliant people here, brilliant minds in the industry. I never thought that I would get that sort of an exposure in the business industry here. And otherwise, I would say this is just a very nice place. Like, yeah, that's the main takeaway. Unlike London, it's not very cold. Unlike Canada, it's not freezing. Unlike some other European countries where it's, I don't know, very hot or whatever it is. My geography is bad, but certain other countries where it must be very hot or sultry, that is not the case with Australia. It has a very pleasant and moderate weather. The crime rate is really low. There's hardly any crime. Anything and everything that happens is between on the other side of the world. So here, in that sense, people are very chilled out. You have a very laid back life, and the most important thing is my work life balance. I get my work life balance here. So I think that is the main reason why I've stayed.
That's wonderful to hear. So, Pavitra, that's great. Australia has a lot to offer apart from the law also, and that's quite something, quite an incentive to actually put in the hard work that you have in order to be able to stay in such a remarkable country. Now, another thing that, we are getting a lot of questions, so we'll quickly get into the Q&A from the audience in a minute or two. But my last question to you is, and you could deal with it briefly, and then through the Q&A, I will request Simran to take up those questions. That are there sufficient opportunities when it comes to employment in Australia for somebody who is an immigrant? An Indian lawyer who goes, studies there, gets all the qualifications. Is there a real chance of landing up a good employment opportunity?
So yeah, this like you read in my bio that I do mentor a lot of people as well. So a lot of students who come in from Jindal and who come in from other universities who are aspiring to qualify here, they reach out to me with the same questions. They have different lines of thoughts, and they have their own plan about how they plan on qualifying here. But the main question is that, okay, this is how we plan on doing it. What do you think about it? I'm happy to chime in and give an opinion, also one or two, like talk a little bit about it, which is fine. But the main thing that they always come back to me about is, what about employment? All right. So like any other legal industry, the legal industry here is saturated. Okay, so that is a fact. Even in India, the legal industry is saturated in the sense that there are a lot of lawyers, but not enough jobs. The same thing is with America, the same is happening with UK, and the same is happening here as well. In Australia, there are a lot of brilliant domestic lawyers, and at the same time, there are a lot of brilliant international lawyers as well. Now, in Australia, one thing that always anybody who comes here and who's worked here would tell you is that without gaining Australian experience, it's very difficult for you to get your foot through the door. All right. So anything and everything that you've learned in your home country, you might have 1.5 years experience working as a lawyer, you might have 2 years working as a lawyer, experience of working as a lawyer, 3 years, 5 years, whatever you have, irrespective at what level you have to come here and you have to start at the bottom again. So that is something that qualified lawyers and people who have reached at some stage in their life, in terms of their career related growth and achievement, they wouldn't want to give up that. Obviously, after you've struggled for almost 5-6 years in your home country, and if you're asked to like leave everything and then come here and then start from scratch again, it's not possible. But as far as an immigrant who's a student is concerned, like myself, when I came here, I was 22. So for someone like me, it was okay. There was hardly anything that I had achieved in my career at that point in time. So there was no problem with me giving up everything and saying that, all right, I will start again. So no problem. But for someone who's put in those years, it would be a difficult call. But that being said, the positive bit that everybody needs to take away from this, whatever I've explained so far, is that don't give up. I'd say every opportunity that comes your way, take it in your stride. For example, in my case, when I started working, I had to start as a law clerk. So even though I'd finished all those internships, I did not qualify in India, no doubt. I came here and I qualified. But still, my first employer was like, what Australian experience do you have? I was like, I just landed here 2 months back. I don't have any experience. I finished with my internship. I have 1 month's experience. Is that good enough? She was like, that's not good enough. I'm going to give you a law clerk's position. Now, I was like, okay, fair enough. Law clerk is the bottommost position that someone gets when they are interning. Like in India, that would be equivalent to an intern. Now, in my case, I'd finished my graduation and I had come here. I should at least get the position of a paralegal, right? That was my expectation. But she was like, no, you sit there and you'll be a law clerk. I was like, okay, fair enough. I worked as a law clerk. I made my way through to becoming a paralegal. And from there, I became a junior solicitor, and now I'm a solicitor. But like I said, this is a curve that everybody has to go through, especially immigrants have to go through. If you come here on a permanent visa, if you permanently migrate here, if that happens, you could at least reach out to the recruitment companies and ask them to help you with finding an opportunity, and you could put through your portfolio or your resume and everything, and they could help you transition. But for an immigrant with limited work rights, because on our student visas we have limited work rights, so companies usually don't want to hire people who have limited work rights. They don't want to see you just for 3 days in a week. They want someone who can put in the hours and who can work throughout the week. So who's the best option for that? A permanent migrant. So this is what I would say, that the legal industry is saturated as such. Um, there is stiff competition. You need to have Australian experience to get your foot through the door. Don't shy away from the opportunities that come your way. Take everything in your stride. As an immigrant, you have limitations, no doubt, but don't make that limitation an excuse to, run away from going and doing the hard thing or the difficult thing or walking down the difficult path. Don't use that as an excuse to shy away from walking down the difficult lane. That's all I'd like to say.
So, Pavitra, this is great. So, what I get from your experience of getting employed in Australia and at such a good firm and all of that is that you have to work your way up, right? You can't really land up as a junior associate. You have to start at the bottom because every industry in every country has its rules, and it's good to follow the process rather than rigging it and getting in between and then not knowing what to do. So you have to build your foundation bottom up, and you can't do it midway somewhere. Another thing which is pretty clear is, of course, it is a saturated market and it would always be a demand and supply issue. But still, what comes out from your story is if you're willing to work hard and locate those opportunities and work hard for those opportunities, not taking no for an answer and also not giving up, then you can get successfully employed. There are opportunities, good opportunities are always less in any industry in any part of the world. So it's not that nobody is hiring, people are hiring, but people are hiring at positions that are comfortable to them. Now you can make the best case for yourself by reaching there early and getting into the system early, because later on, if your Indian experience is not going to count there, of course, if it's sizable 10, 20 years, it's a different thing. But if it's 2 or 3 years, it's not going to count. And then you want to migrate to Australia, then it makes sense for you to do it right after graduation and actually begin working there and having some kind of experience there. That's true for any industry. And that gives hope to the students that there are employment opportunities, but you have to make your move a little faster and also be realistic about which position you are going to get, and also have that hope that you are going to climb up that ladder gradually, and that is the best way. So with that, yeah.
Sorry
Yes.
to
Yes.
I actually wanted to add to what you were saying, because you see, if you're coming in from India and you want to practice in Australia, the employer would at least expect that you know something about Australian the legal sphere here. If you have no idea about how things function here at a very basic level, and then you would expect them to hand down a good position to you, that would be a little unrealistic. Like, that's what I feel, that irrespective of whether you have 3 years or 5 years of experience, the point still remains that you have that experience in your home jurisdiction. You don't have that experience in their jurisdiction. So that's why I'd say that if someone is wanting to qualify here, start early, like you rightly said. Maybe start early enough, like as soon as you graduate, and so that you don't feel that pinch that, oh, I struggled so much there, I worked hard for so much, for such a long period in time, and now I've come here now to start again. Instead of feeling that way, you'd rather start immediately after you graduate, and then you won't feel that pinch, because then you'd be like, okay, I'm doing it just like anybody else.
Yes, that is very true. And early on in your early 20s, you have that energy also to take up these new challenges, so that by the time you are in your 30s, you are well settled in your domain, which means, of course, you are still facing challenges, but your fundamental challenges are over, and now you're aspiring to do something different and something bigger. Also, I mean, one has to be realistic about these things. Nobody is only going to hand you a job just like that. They're going to see your suitability, they're going to see your qualifications and your ability to work in that organization, because ultimately they want to get work done from you. And as you rightly said, if you have no knowledge of Australian law, it would be a disservice to you as well to put you in a position where you're struggling with the basics, right?
Yes.
So, and that would be similar. Somebody who's coming from Australia and landing up in an Indian law firm, and we ask them to start reading family law, or because family law matters are also done, or something as property law, and also looking at those Hindu-Muslim divisions of property, how that takes place, it will be a disservice to that person. So the basic fundamentals of law is something that is expected, and therefore that is something that students should not get demotivated, but actually know about these challenges and work their way through that. So now going to Simran, there are so many questions for you. So over to you, Simran. Please take over the Q&A session.
Yes, thank you so much, Shireen, and thank you so much, Pavitra. I think as someone who also went to Australia, right? And has gone through that maze of visa requirements, trying to tell people that I have some experience, please help me out. And then, of course, my journey was a lot different from yours. Like, I feel that my master's also allowed me. So I went with the same plan. And then while doing my master's, I think I underwent a journey where I thought that, no, actually, I don't want to be a solicitor in India or Australia. I think research is where I want to be. So I think an LLM also comes with like those self journeys that sort of take you wherever you need to. But yes, I do miss the Australian weather as well. Thank you for bringing that up. I tell all the students that look at the weather. Where can you live? You're going to be doing challenging programs. You don't want to be like uncomfortable physically in a place. But yeah, we have quite a few questions. So what I've done is I've clubbed together the questions that I feel are more or less, they're similar to each other. So maybe that'll just help us out a bit. So one question that a lot of students I know would want to know, and that's repeated throughout in here as well, is that to qualify with the laws, with the Australian legal boards, essentially, right, with the general exemption to speak, right? Essentially, students want to know how that works out, right? So they want to know at what point should you get your degree assessed is the first thing that they need to know. And they also want to know that if it makes any impact if you don't pursue an LLM. And somehow you manage to get a visa that allows you to simply finish your priestly subjects, right? So does that help, or is an LLM something that's required to be able to, sort of requalify? Because in a lot of jurisdictions like Canada, that is a thing. You cannot requalify as a foreign lawyer unless you've done an LLM as well. So is that a consideration in Australia?
Okay, so the thing is that you've been through this journey. You've also qualified in University of Melbourne, so which is one of the top ranking schools in Australia. So you'd know that an important part of qualifying as a lawyer here is having a visa, right? Like, in order for you to be able to come here and qualify, it's important for you to have a visa. Okay. Now, the point still remains that unlike other countries, like you said, Canada, where you're allowed to pick an LLM and you're allowed to like choose certain subjects once you go through their NCA process, and they'll give you that, okay, this many subjects is what you're supposed to study. You pick one of their universities and you go and study those courses there. In Australia, that's not the scenario. All right. The scenario here is that you won't be qualifying with a university. You'd be qualifying via a legal board. And that legal board is going to offer you the subjects in collaboration with one of their universities, right? So, for example, if you've studied in Victoria, probably you could do it from their Leo Cuisine Center, or you could do it from the College of Law, or you could do it along with your JD program. In NSW, the situation is such that you first apply your papers with the legal profession board here. Once you do that, they look at your marks and everything else. After, they'll give you their assessment, and then you're supposed to study those courses with University of Sydney.
Yeah.
So, and for that, you will not get a visa. Why? Because that's just a very small course with like 3 subjects or 6 subjects. They're not going to give you a visa so that you could come here and complete those subjects. The second thing is that this is not, okay, let me take a step back. Another thing is that for majority of the courses for which you get your student visa, you'd have to have something called a confirmation of enrollment, a CEO, right?
Yeah.
COE, sorry. A COE is what you're supposed to have. So for these courses that are floated by the legal profession board, they don't give you a COE. So when they don't give you a COE, there is no basis for you to apply for a visa. All right. There are people who have reached out to me and said, how about we apply for a work visa? We have worked in India for about 2 years now. And how about, what do you think about, us applying for a work visa? My question still remains the same. On what basis are you going to apply for a work visa? You haven't qualified here as a lawyer. Why would the company sponsor you to come here and work? All right. So now, answering your question step by step. First thing that you need to do is graduate from Jindal, collect your transcripts, maybe take extra transcripts with yourself, pay whatever is the fees, take extra transcripts. You take that transcript, you submit it to the legal board, let them make the assessment, and let them come back to you with that assessment as to how many subjects you have to do. You can be expected to do 3 subjects just like I was, or you can be expected to do 24 subjects. That's also a possibility. Okay, because we are from Jindal, we have that exemption, but there are a lot of other students who don't start, who have not studied from Jindal, who've studied from other universities, and probably they'd be asked to do an entire course. Now, if you happen to fall within that, if you have more than 6 subjects to complete, I'd say rather do their entire JD program, right? Do their 3-year JD program. You'd have the opportunity to come here, stay here. You'd have the opportunity to paralegal with their firms here, and now they're offering a 3-year work visa after you complete your studies versus the 2-year visa. So now you have 3 years time to build on that whatever you have studied in your JD. You have 3 years time to like gain relevant experience. So I would say if you have more than 6 subjects, definitely go ahead and pursue a JD. If you have less than 6 subjects and you don't want to do an LLM in Australia, stay in your home country, finish those subjects, and then once you qualify as a solicitor, see if you qualify for a work visa. So if you don't want to invest your money in going for a student visa and everything else, this is the best that you can do. But on the other hand, if you want to come here and you want to, stay here and study those subjects and also work, then the only thing you can do is either apply for an LLM or apply for another 2-year course that can give you that 3-year work visa pathway. The main consideration always happens to be the visa. That's the only problem here.
Yeah, of course, no. And that's something that I think we also need to tell our students that the number of subjects you do also depends on the jurisdiction you get your assessment from.
Yes.
So for example, when I got my assessment, I got it from Victoria. So Victoria identified 3 subjects again that I had to do, the same 3. But
Yeah.
I was living in Queensland, studying in Victoria. I had a new way of dealing with things. And I realized that in both Victoria and Queensland, those 3 things were subject areas. I had to, in fact, finish 6 courses to complete those 3, because both Victoria and Queensland, they don't really have a setup with one university that does that.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yes.
So I realized that my visa woes were worse because there was no way those subjects were offered one after the other, or I could even get into a full course load.
Exactly.
In 2 semesters. So you have all these practical considerations that you have to think of and understand as well. I think our students should know that. We are running short of time, so we are just going to narrow down the questions. One more question that a lot of people want to know is about your UNSW LLM application. And the question is that what is the kind of importance that grades play in that admission to the LLM? And what is the kind of GPA that would make a LLM application in UNSW a very strong application?
I'd say grades definitely play a part in your application to UNSW, just like to any other top law school in the world. But I would say don't, if you're on the lower end and if you don't have those types of grades, then I'd say still don't shy away from applying. I would say by all means apply, make your resume strong enough, and make your the statement of purpose, the statement of purpose that you write for your university, make that strong enough and build it on your experiences and try to demonstrate your motivation for pursuing a certain course. So I remember another person who had applied from a different country, and she did not have really great grades, but still she was my batchmate. And when I interacted with her, I realized that she had a lot to make up for those lack of grades, in the sense that she had written like a bunch of research papers, she was into mooting, she was into client interviewing, a lot of other things that were relevant in her home country. She was like on top of it all. So while my grades would have been okay, good, but I didn't have all these things to offer that she had. And she was able to capture all of that in her statement of purpose. She was able to capture all of that in her scholarship statement. She had all of it in her resume. And I'm sure that when she would have been in front of their educational board, they would have said that, yes, most definitely, we'll definitely offer her a place at our university. So grades does have some bearing on your application, but I would not say that is 80% of it. If you're on the lower end of your grade spectrum, then I'd say make up for it in your resume, go for internships, go for these extracurricular activities and make up for that loss of grades. Capture that in your statement of purpose, in your scholarship statement, and nail your application.
Yeah. I think we have time for one quick last question. So essentially, students want to know what are the chances of you being able to complete your priestly subject requirements, essentially while doing a non-law degree, like an MBA or some other business degree. Is that something that happens often?
Yeah, I know one of, she's actually from Jindal itself. Her name is Samruddhi Vasudeva, and she is one of our seniors. She has recently, I think she completed her Masters of Social Work. I'm not sure which university she has completed that from, but she came here, she completed her Masters of Social Work. And after completing her Masters of Social Work, while she was on her work visa, the 2-year work visa, she qualified to become a solicitor here. And now based on that, she has a job as well from at a very good law firm, an immigration law firm. So this is the best example that I could give you, that you could do a non-law degree for 2 years. You can come here, pursue that degree, and after that, if you want, you can transition onto your work visa and finish these requirements, or simultaneously also you can do it.
Okay.
Because my motivation for doing this was because I wanted an LLM. But if you're not keen on getting an LLM, you want to explore another area, by all means do it.
Yeah. So perfect. So essentially, the degree you do in your postgrad really doesn't affect your chances of being able to qualify or not qualify. Yeah. Perfect. I think these were the questions that I think you would be best placed to answer. For the rest of them, I think please guys reach out to us at Cashel, and we will try to help you out, answer your questions, and also get you through to our alumni network that can help you out with all of these. So yes, over to you, Shireen.
Thank you, Simran, and thank you so much, Pavitra, for actually dealing with all those questions and genuinely being concerned about the attendees who had these questions and answering them in the most realistic, holistic, and candid manner that one could. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Relations, Cashel, Office of Career Services, Dean, Jindal Global Law School, I really thank you for taking out this time, sharing your experiences, not only about the education that you received at Jindal as well as in UNSW, and then how you went on to build a professional practice in Australia, which is quite a remarkable feat at such a young age. I mean, you are a bundle of confidence, hard work, determination, courage, and something that is worth imitating for all the attendees that are here today. And of course, people who are going to watch it later on YouTube as well, and whoever is akin with the remarkable journey and story that you have had. There's so much to learn, there's so much to imbibe and also to imitate probably. The good thing about your journey is that you're not only interested in growing yourself, which you have been doing and which you will be doing in the future as well, but you're also taking people along. You're bringing you're sort of building your own community, your own tribe. And I can see it through your mentorship, through the fact that you are networking. You were in a position where you were reaching out for information about 3 to 4 years ago, and now you have become the person whom people are reaching out for information, and you are obliging, which is a rare quality in today's world, which is so competitive. So we are really proud of you. Your alma mater is proud of you, and what we would like for you to do is to keep coming back, sharing your experiences. This is something that you have shared in the past as well, but today you are reaching out to a different bunch of people, and what I feel is that your experiences will be growing, but your audience will also be growing as you speak about your experiences. So it is very important for you to keep sharing from where you began and where you have reached, for people to get inspired, people to believe if she can do it, I can at least try and put in that faith in myself and try and do it. So it's great to have this interaction with you, and I look forward to these interactions. Today morning, I knew this is the first thing I had to do, and I was excited to speak to you about your journey, because I knew I would go back much more fulfilled. I would go back having a positive attitude towards my day, and that is something I think each one of us resonate alike on. That positive attitude is something, the positive vibe even in a virtual mode is something that is coming off what you are speaking, because throughout your articulation of your journey, not even once did you say that this was a struggle, this was a challenge. You said, oh, take it on. I mean, I'm going to take it on and I'm going to get to the next level. So that is great, and we wish you luck. And closing remarks from your side, and then we will close the webinar for today.
And that's very kind of you. That's very kind of Jindal. Thank you so much, Simran, as well, for all your questions. And it's great to catch up with one of my batchmates who's now a lecturer. So hearty congratulations to you. And as always, Ms. Moti, it's lovely. You are my senior. And like I told you in one of my last sessions, you are an inspiration to many of my batchmates. You continue to be one because of your work and because of your amazing credentials. So I think people like you, like I said last time as well, I remember you are the torchbearers of Jindal, and we look up to you and we walk in your footsteps, hoping that, we can make our mark somewhere. But that being said, I'm humbled, I'm honored. This is it's my pleasure to always be a part of your, like in whatever way I can, to be a part of your initiatives. And definitely, whatever I have gone through, I'm not the kind of person who'd want that other people should also struggle. I'm not that sort of a person. If my experience and if my journey can make things easier for someone else, then why not? Why should everybody go through the struggle that X person has gone through? So I think that is my way of thinking. If someone is smart about it, they would reach out to people and try to make their journey more easier instead of trying to make it more difficult. And at the same time, although my journey was fraught with some difficulties here and there are like a lot of people I have to thank, and I have thanked them personally numerous amount of times. And it was only because of them that I have come this far. So if those people weren't a part of my journey, if they weren't my guiding light, then I wouldn't have come this far. So it's only my duty to become a guiding light for someone else in some small capacity or a big capacity, to help them find, navigate their journey. So that's my way of giving back. But again, your platform here, Cash's initiative, the amount of work that Office of Alumni Relations puts into, making these sessions available for people, not only from Jindal, but from other places as well. I'm sure students from all other universities are also watching these interactive webinars, and they get a lot of takeaways. So in that sense, I feel like Jindal is doing an amazing job. And for that, again, I'd say that my loyalties will always lie with this university. Why? Because it's not only trying to strive for its betterment, but it's trying to strive for the betterment of all people, like, of majority of students in India. So in that sense, I'd say that it's lovely being a part of this webinar. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavitra. And with this, I invite you to the campus physically. Once you are in India, you should make it a point to come to campus, and we will felicitate you for the immense contributions and the achievements that you have had so far. And I would also, before closing the webinar, I would like to thank the organizing team. So Simran, thank you, Nishtha, Ananya, Pranav, Risha, all of them were a part of the organizing team for this webinar, and thank you for all your efforts. Thank you to the attendees for asking such remarkable questions and for being so patient with all of us and actually attending this from the beginning till the end. Please encourage your friends also to see it on the Casual playlist on YouTube. You'll see it on the JGU page on YouTube. Thank you. Have a lovely day ahead, and let's dream big and let's try and achieve those dreams. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.